Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day, where today on the show we have a guest that I think all of you are really going to enjoy hearing about. This is a little bit higher level than just your basic consumer, kind of level stuff. But, these are the things that happen behind the scenes that make a lot of what we do, kind of possible. So, hey, this is going to be a lot of fun, and we'll introduce our guest in just a moment. But before that, a couple of things, including ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything for today's show, be that any link to our guest website or any articles we do when we do computer and technology news, or just anything and everything we do here on Computer America can be found at our website. So check that out. Also, while you're there, be sure to sign up for the social media contest brought to you by Logitech, and be sure to look at the video portion where you can watch Computer America and not just listen. It's not mandatory, still a radio show, but it's just another way to experience what it is that we do here. So I think with all of that, again, I hope all of you are having a great day, hopefully better than some people testifying on Capitol Hill, and yeah, you're ready to get into today's show. So, joining us here for our interview is a company called CipherCloud, and you can, of course, like I said, we'll have a link to that in the show notes. But CipherCloud, and here to tell us what they do, how they do it, and everything about the company is our guest, who is Anthony James, and he is the Chief Marketing Officer for the company. So, Anthony, thank you for joining us here on Computer America.
My pleasure, Ben. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. So why don't we start at the beginning and talk to us about CipherCloud if we haven't heard of the company, give us an overview, and then a bit about yourself. How did you find yourself working with CipherCloud?
Sure, love to. CipherCloud is it's a business security company. What I mean by that is we develop technology that's designed to help businesses embrace cloud services whilst securing their data. Obviously, there's a lot of things that happen, and there's not a week that goes by without a high-profile breach. And CipherCloud's whole business purpose is to offer solutions to companies that are looking to utilize cloud services and, of course, highly worried about their sensitive data being exposed or breached. That's in a nutshell.
Yeah. And then a bit about yourself. I mean, were you always in cybersecurity, or?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in technology probably going on 30 years now, so it's been a long time. I transitioned over into cybersecurity about 15 years ago, and have had a long history the last 15 years in Silicon Valley, helping early stage kind of startups figure out how to bring new security technologies to market. And I've had this transition of looking for companies that are solving that next big problem that the attackers are starting to uncover and utilize. So fast forward to today, I find myself at CipherCloud, and part of the transition was looking to help people embrace the cloud whilst making sure their data is kept private and sensitive.
Now, as you said, there hasn't been like really a week in, I'd say, the past year and a half, 2 years, that another large company hasn't been compromised, or there have been evidence shown that either state-sponsored or or some kind of criminal ring has been trying to hack into important systems. Let's take Atlanta for instance. The city, even cities are now under attack by people looking to mishandle information on the internet. So what I'm saying is that we could take this conversation in a lot of ways. You have a question here about Iranian hackers, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit, because we do cover a lot of news here on the show. We've heard credit card companies, we've heard major retailers, we've heard banks, government agencies. I have not heard anything about Iranian hackers. So what is up with this story?
This is the recent story that broke, and it was about it was Iranian nation cyber attackers. They were able to penetrate multiple networks, over 140 universities actually, and it was really interesting because they were trying to get access to a lot of student records, student data, and you kind of think of that as a separate problem versus credit card data and other things. But ultimately, it leads back to trying to get access to personal information for profit. It's really what it's all about. But yeah, this attack broke a little while ago, and it was really all about trying to access sensitive information that could lead people to creating an identity and then using that identity for their own nefarious purposes, obviously.
I guess the question is, what kind of personal information are they looking for? Because a lot of people share a lot of information that's, like I said, that was what Facebook is up on Capitol Hill this week to discuss,
right.
Is that, so many people provide so much personal information that it's, not really that uncommon for it to get into, I wouldn't even say the wrong hands, just a lot of hands. So what kind of information were they looking for, and how were they able to get into, these university websites?
Right. So let's look at the information first, and then we'll talk about how they can penetrate these infrastructures. So information is interesting. Like when we talk about, typically when we think about hackers and breaking into systems, we've had the traditional concept of they're going after credit card data, or they're going after bank information, or those kind of, standard typical types of data sets. The reality is today, the attackers are building up more of profiles for people. So not just, I want a bunch of credit cards that I can sell on the underground, because those credit cards become stale very quickly. But if I can identify someone who might have a credit rating, who then could be used to generate more and more opportunity to leverage that credit rating, opening loans, buying different things, creating credit card accounts, that becomes much more valuable. Because if you have a persona, and if you can recreate a persona, and you can get enough information to defraud a credit card company to opening that credit card on your behalf, obviously it's someone else is doing it. But now it becomes a much more long game. So these attackers, if they're going after, for example, university systems, they're looking for student records. They're not looking for their grades, but they're looking for, what is the name, what is the email address, what's the place of birth, what's the date of birth, is there a social security number that I can grab? Now I can build a persona, and those personas become much more valuable on the longevity of time. They can be sold on the underground at a lot higher price, and their life is a lot longer. So that's really how that all comes together.
Yeah, and before we talk about the the actual how the hack happened and things like that, talk to us a bit about the kind of people who do this, because I've seen instances where people say that, hey, we are, or they don't really say, hey, we are hackers, but we've seen the hackers, they are, either from certain countries, they work in kind of call center-esque kind of places, and they go fishing for data, they do random phone calls. Talk to us about who these people kind of are, because there's that long-held misconception that it's people living in their parents' basements, and those are hackers. and then also talk about the people who are buying the information that they then compromise, because that's kind of the other side of this.
Right. Yeah. Anything to be successful, there has to be supply and demand. I don't know if that echo is coming from me or not. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and that's just said a lot. But yeah, go ahead.
So when you think about who are these people? There are two common types of organizations. One is nation state sponsored. So that would be a foreign government sponsoring its own internal team, and there could be hundreds, in some cases they've been exposed to thousands. Those types of groups are more going after foreign nations. So they're trying to get into infrastructure and other more critical things. That's one group. The second group is organized crime. That's where there's always been this adage of why do robbers rob banks? Well, that's where the money is. Well, now a lot of that money is digital. A lot of things have transferred into digital currencies, not talking Bitcoin, but just the exchange of money electronically. So these groups are organized crimes that have found that being able to harvest information and sell that information is a much more lucrative, and it has a lower potential to get caught. Because a lot of these personas are anonymous, the underground helps. If you're going in the dark web, there's a lot of anonymity. So by virtue of that, you've now got these two groups. It's not the kids sitting in their basement bored. That kind of has gone away many, many years ago. It's actually funded organizations that can generate hundreds of millions of dollars on these campaigns that could go out and harvest information from, in this case, universities, or it could be other kind of low barrier to entry, if you will, organizations, and then they'll sell that data in various areas. Usually the underground is the best place to go. The dark web, there's a lot of forums you can get online, and people are selling and buying data all the time. They're trying to create, like I mentioned before, someone's persona, so they could have, identity theft very easily, or they're trying to harvest other data for other reasons. But that's usually the types of groups that we have to deal with.
Right. No, and of course makes perfect sense. Where it used to be, I guess, because we actually met and talked with a bunch of those hackers from, when hacking first, kind of came up, and
Right.
it was kind of about reputation. It was about look what I can do. Slowly,
Exactly.
yeah, slowly and surely, it became, like you said, because more and more things involve money online. It became, the point of hacking is for monetary gain. And that's when,
Yep.
the bored kids went away and the organized crime, I guess, as you say. So that's very interesting. Talk about this hack, because you just said something that I don't think any university wants to hear, is that you mentioned these lower barrier to entry kind of targets. And I guess, so you would classify a university as a lower barrier to entry. Talk about what you mean by that, and how did this whole thing happen that we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Not to say that their staff and their IT organizations aren't doing the right things, but I think when I look at an organization, there's an attack surface. And an attack surface is like whenever you want to penetrate something, what is the surface area that is exposed, and how can you get in? So when you look at a university, and we can think about some other types of industries, the challenge now is you have this population that is nomadic by virtue of they're sometimes on campus, they're sometimes off campus, they're bringing their own devices, they have a variety of devices that there isn't as much control over those devices as, per se, a financial institution. A financial institution, its employees, the devices they use are very well controlled and regimented and have certain set of security standards to abide by. If you're attending a university, you can bring your own laptop in. Do you have the right antivirus installed? Do you have the right protection profiles? Yeah, maybe not. There's the old kind of assumption that Apple is always safe, so a lot of people don't use antivirus for Apple. May not be the right practice. And so it's not that their infrastructure per se isn't as safe as others, it's just they have a larger attack surface and so many ways for attackers to get in outside of just trying to go in through what I would call the digital front door or the firewall.
Right. So, and I think you said something like 104 universities.
That's right.
I'm still registered with one university. So I could get into my own, kind of set of systems. But if you told me that, like, I could take my username and password from, FAU and say, hey, you need to get into the University of New York, that would be, impossible. Just as kind of as an end user, how did these hackers get into so many different universities? Because, you think that each one would be kind of its own chore, but were they connected some way?
Typically, a lot of these universities are connected. There are a back-end infrastructure that allow them to communicate. And of course, the internet opens up a wide range of possibilities. So it's not necessarily about getting your username and your password to gain access to the infrastructure. Sometimes it could be about dropping malware on your laptop that you may not know about if you're running outdated antivirus software, or the students themselves may not be up to date or might not even worry about antivirus software. They could be getting some kind of malicious payload installed on their device, and all that device has to do is connect back to the university network. Now there's a potential for an attacker who has seeded that device with some bad code or some other type of malware to have a foothold in that organization, and then they start to hunt for places they can camp out and gain backdoor access once the students leave. So it's all about that attack surface becoming, unfortunately, a real challenge to tighten down the security posture for those universities.
Right. So talk to us about classic defense in depth, which I'm sure that means something along the lines of, antivirus, make sure you don't click links, things like that. Just, kind of the classic ways to make sure that you don't compromise yourself or your, university, company, what have you. But you say here that it's no longer good enough. So I guess, kind of what isn't working now, and what do people need to do differently?
Yeah, it's not good enough. It's that it's an ever-moving target. So I guess in that respect, it may not be good enough for today. But if you look at defense in depth and what that has been designed to do, and governmental institutions instituted this kind of security approach many, many years ago. The whole idea was, if you think about your house, if you secure your house, you obviously have a lock on the front door. That's one defense mechanism. Well, you might go to the next stage of putting some kind of sensors on the windows. That's a second set of defenses, that now you are building what we would call a defense in depth kind of profile. Then you might add security cameras as another defense layer. And so organizations that have, critical systems or information they want to protect take the same approach in the digital world. They'll put a firewall up, which is like your front door, and of course that's the baseline of protection. Then they might put up some other inside detection kind of solutions that look for data that's not quite correct or behavior that looks a little bit out of the ordinary. Obviously, as you mentioned, antivirus, getting the latest antivirus software on the devices that are being connected to that network is another defense layer. So all these layers, adding them together, make a better security posture. The challenge is, as we move forward in time, the attackers are finding new techniques. And so we have to be a little more diligent. And something you had mentioned is clicking links.
Right.
I have friends, family, and a lot of people I know that still click on that link that they think it's from a friend. It's either on Facebook or it's in their email or what have you.
Oh my goodness! I have to say that I was actually, hanging over my dear mother. I was hanging over her shoulder, watching her go through her email because she was looking to show me something, and she went to I told her to check her spam folder to see if whatever she was looking for went into there. She found one. And my name is Ben, so obviously she got a spam email because I'm in her contacts saying, hey, this is Ben, check this out. And again, it went straight to her spam. She never, she would have never found it. She opened it and she I'm right there. She's like, Ben, did you send this? And clicks the link in front of my face. And I'm like, oh my God, it happens so easily.
It does. And that's actually, it's interesting that you tell that story. And if you fast forward a little bit, what if someone was able to access your Facebook? They were able to log into your Facebook account and send that same, hey, Mom, check this out. Then there's no question. It's not going to drop into a spam folder. It's going to be right in her face. Right. And there's no question she's going to click on it because she thinks it's from you. So that's partly why these attackers are going after more information and trying to access more data about people, because they can break into other ways to socially engineer people to do things they shouldn't be doing.
Social engineering, glad that you brought up the term. And I guess my question is because we mentioned Facebook, they are kind of in hot water because of just how much information they are collecting about you. We talked about universities. They more and more, they don't want files in a filing cabinet. They want a digital record of you as a student. Everywhere you go, your grades, what you do, blah, blah, blah. And really almost every single website or web service that you use, that data is kind of how they make money off of you as well. So my point is, you called it the rush to the cloud. Everyone wants these profiles that these hackers are trying to target. I guess this makes them even more vulnerable. How, I guess my question to you as a security person, have companies given enough thought to not just how do we get this data, but how do we protect it? Because, just sitting here looking at the news, the answer I would guess would be no.
Right, right. You're absolutely right. It's a big challenge, and one little tip I want to give your audience that I think everyone should do. This is a little sidebar here. If ever you get a link to go to a website and you decide to click it, and it looks like it's your bank or whatever, my recommendation is always type in a known wrong username and wrong password. Just make sure it's absolutely 100% wrong. And if it lets you pass that login checkbox, it means it's trying to gather information on you. So
Interesting.
yeah, even if you go to your local bank, always type in the wrong password first, just so that way you're safe. But going back to the cloud, yeah, it's interesting. We look at cloud as a hyper productivity kind of approach to computing. What I mean by that is, how did we used to share files? It was tough, right? At one point in my life, it was floppy disks, then it became USB drives and thumb drives, and even in that regard, it was difficult to share files with people. Email was kind of a common medium, and then all of a sudden, these collaboration tools opened up for both business and personal. So now you can go to Google Drive, or you can go to OneDrive, or you pick Dropbox Box, whichever the preferred tool is. It's easy to share information. So the cloud has opened up this hyper productivity around applications. File sharing is just one of those applications. Businesses are embracing cloud because rather than 20 years ago having to build a server, install software, and get everyone trained on it, you can subscribe to a server and have your entire organization up and running in an afternoon on whatever that tool offers. That's unbelievable from an agility point of view and helping your business progress forward. But then you raise a question, what about the information? How do you protect it? And this becomes a real issue. Because whether you think about it or not, you might have your entire organization using Google Drive. Great product. They offer great security. They have two-factor authentication. There's virus protection, all the right things. But what happens when that one employee takes that confidential file and accidentally shares it to an external party? Well, you were authorized to do it. You're authorized to log into the system. You're authorized to access the file. And all of a sudden you share it to someone outside of your organization, which the tool offers you the ability to do. Now that data is out there. And we've seen recently, and you mentioned it on the earlier in the conversation, a lot of high-profile breaches recently that were associated with the cloud. Not because the cloud was insecure, just because the data was unprotected and there was a misconfiguration or a mistake, or someone shared something they shouldn't have, and then it becomes a large breach that company has to deal with.
So I mean, just real quick, of course, like we said, you are with CipherCloud, and I guess if you could just speak, kind of to the steps that a security firm such as CipherCloud would kind of give, because let's see, I keep bringing up these different instances. I think it was either Starbucks or Panera Bread or both. They had, people's emails and names saved in a database in plain text, like not encrypted, not password protected, just open. Just if you knew where to look, you could find everything in plain text and download it in 2 seconds. What do you do as a security firm?
That's absolutely right. So what we do is something pretty unique. So we help customers embrace the cloud, but do it in a way that's secure. And what I mean by that is, of course, there's the who can log in, when can they log in, what location can they log in, what device can they log in from. There's all of that goodness. So we can help companies define appropriate policies. Like you can log into this database, but only on an office computer, not a home computer. That's one kind of set of capabilities. But where we really shine is this idea of data protection. And let's say, for example, you're using a cloud-based application, and as you're using it as an employee, you're going through a bunch of fields in a form, you're typing in data, and maybe some of that data is highly confidential. What we will do is, before that data is pushed into the cloud, just as you're sending it, we intercept it for you under your instance of our software. We transpose that private data whether it's social security, but whatever PII or private information you care about, and we can encrypt it. And what gets sent into the cloud then is encrypted, and it's only encrypting the data that you deem as private or sensitive. So now you have this experience where the end user doesn't know any of this happened. They're dealing with the data in front of them, and that data is in clear text. Everything that is stored in that cloud service is encrypted or protected in some way, shape, or form. We have a number of other opportunities to protect data. So now, taking your example, Starbucks, there was a recent one with Delta and a few others. Mm-hmm. If someone was able to access that database remotely, the data that they want access to that you deem as private is fully encrypted, and only you will ever see it. So that's kind of in a nutshell how we help enterprises embrace cloud services and not leave their data unprotected, if you will.
Yeah, it's definitely rings from what I've been hearing lately, where it's not just about what can you do with the cloud, because you could do really everything. You could have everything hosted off-site and everything managed independently, but in a lot of cases that's probably not your best, it's not needed, not necessary, and it's probably not your best way to kind of run your business. So and also recently on the show, like just yesterday, we had a company called HC1. They do a lot with back end of hospitals and things like that. HIPAA compliance and these kinds of things, just from a security standpoint, is that coming up more and more often, where because we have things like health monitor systems and things like that, how, like, these different standards of security, is there, like, when customers come in, do they go, we'll give you the package A, and we'll give you HIPAA, and we'll give you blah, 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 or are all these pretty easy to just say, we can keep you secure, everything's going to be fine, and it's just kind of security as standard, or is security tiered?
Well, for us, it's one kind of solution that solves a lot of problems. HIPAA is an example where there's a component in the HIPAA regulation that has some sense of patient data needs to be protected, and what that could be is, for example, encryption. So it shouldn't be outside of your control in a form that's readable by a third party. That's kind of a loose interpretation of the HIPAA requirement. There's a lot of other pieces, but if you take our solution and you're truly taking data before it goes into a cloud service and encrypting it, you are now supporting the HIPAA requirement. So as we look to, and absolutely compliance plays a big role in this. I think compliance is a great attempt to legislate how to protect data, but it doesn't do the mechanics of doing it for you. And so we've built our solution to help companies embrace cloud, not leave their sensitive data unprotected, and also simplify their compliance requirements so we can minimize how much work they have to do to be compliant with HIPAA or PCI or whatever the requirement is.
Right. So this next question we have here, how can you better protect data within your cloud repositories from cyber attackers like the Iranians? I guess you mentioned a couple different ways that that CipherCloud was doing that. But to be fair, there's never like there's never like a silver bullet. There's never something like, okay, guys, wrap it up. We just solved cybersecurity finally. Just kind of an ongoing basis. Is it education? Is it better technology? Is it those allowances that you mentioned? How do you better protect your cloud data?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of the above, actually, Ben. So, like I mentioned, 15 years in cybersecurity, and I've started out in firewalls and moved over to data encryption and everything in between. So, I think education is paramount. When your employees are using cloud services, or you yourself are using cloud services, make sure your password has good protection. Complex passwords are best, and if you can't remember it, get a password vault. It's a great way to do it. And any data you're putting up there are ways that you can protect it before it gets in there. Obviously, we offer a solution that does it transparently, but you might be able to, for example, some simple things. When you create a PDF, you can put a password on it. A zip file, you can password. It's not the best, but it's easier than better than having it in clear text. And then when you're sharing stuff in the cloud, just be cognizant of who you're sharing it with. Make sure it's validated and not someone spamming you and you accidentally share maybe your tax return with a third party that you shouldn't have. So there's a lot of training, and there's some technology that can really help for sure.
Makes perfect sense. And Anthony, we're about to run into the break here in just a minute. Would you mind staying over for a few minutes just to wrap up the conversation?
Sure. No problem.
So everyone joining us is, of course, Anthony James. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of CipherCloud. And yeah, we are, talking all things cybersecurity. And, if you're a small, medium business or even a large business, hey, this is all great information. And hey, even for an end user, strong passwords. So everyone, music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. More Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Why? Because you can save 45% on packages compared to your high-priced cable bill. Wow. Take those giant scissors out and cut the cable and save with Dish TV. Plus, you get a free DVR upgrade to record your favorite shows and free installation. And with Dish Anywhere, you can watch TV for free on your mobile device. Act fast. You can save hundreds of dollars. Does your cable company do that for you? I don't think so. Get all the best TV programming at your fingertips at a fraction of the price of cable TV. So say adios, arrivederci, goodbye to the high cable bill and save up to 45% on Dish TV packages today. These are limited time offers and can change at any time. Call fast.
800-471-5325. 800-471-5325. 800-471-5325. That's 800-471-5325.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And yeah, we are getting back to CipherCloud and to Anthony James, who is the Chief Marketing Officer. And Anthony, again, thank you for staying over. And
My pleasure.
Yeah, so a couple of, kind of our last few questions include the fact that there's a lot of different ways that a company can be compromised. We obviously, the most common is because it can happen from, the Balkans, it can happen from Russia, it can happen from, Iran, it can happen from any of these places, is of course through the cloud. But we've mentioned a number of ways that you try to mitigate that and you can watch out for it. But there's another one, and it involves, actually walking into the premise. We used to have an ethical hacker here on the show who mentioned that, whenever he really wanted to get into a workplace's systems, he would walk in with a suit and tie and flash a white badge and say, hey, I'm here to work on your system. And they'd be led, hey, would you like coffee? We'll sit you down here. You can work on it here. Actually being inside an organization, it's not that hard. Even humans are very susceptible to the social engineering, kind of just walking in the front door and saying, hey, I belong here. Let's say you have a malicious insider, either someone, kind of working on the inside or someone who walks in the front door. How do you protect against some of these, less cybery, more, human engineering kind of ways?
That's a great question. The malicious insider, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that cybersecurity faces. And I can probably go on for hours talking about stories that I've heard about disgruntled employees who have access to large swaths of systems and data, and In fact, right before I got to this company, there was someone trying to do some stuff with data that wasn't appropriate. So there's a couple of approaches. Obviously, the one that you talk about, someone coming in posing as an authorized technician wanting to work on your computer, validate that, talk to someone in IT. If it's a large organization, there's always going to be a help desk line, call that help desk line, ask to validate. And it's interesting that people who walk into a building with a tie and a suit and tie and a briefcase don't get questioned. You should be able to question someone. We're very strict about that here at CipherCloud, being a security company, obviously.
Right.
The second part of that is the digital malicious insider. Is what if someone is truly a regular employee, they work here every day, and they've decided for some reason that they're going to compromise systems, harvest data, and then maybe use that for whatever purposes, whether it's sell it on the underground or take it from a company espionage point of view, bring it to a competitor. So malicious insider is a real challenge, and there's limited ways that you can protect. Obviously, CipherCloud is one of the ways that we like to think about this, is if you protect the data, and I always go back to that. If you protect the data and only have access by certain authorized people at certain authorized kind of locations and times, and I'll give you an example of that, then you can minimize that impact. And I'll give you an example. Let's say me, Anthony James, I'm in marketing here at CipherCloud, and I have access to certain things on our cloud services. I have access to all my documents that are for marketing purposes and so forth. Let's say I decide on a Saturday I'm going to go into the financial side of the cloud storage and start downloading as many financial documents as I can. That's a characteristic that isn't in tune with my behavior. So there's things that we offer that will alert you to that type of behavior, and even to a point where it'll stop it before it really happens. So if someone's not in the location they usually belong to, if they're traveling, or if they're trying to log in from a foreign country they never visit, or if they're accessing from a device that's not managed, or if they're going and doing behavior that's erratic, those things can be identified using systems like ours to identify it, block it, and make sure that data is protected. That's one of the harder things to protect from, and I'm happy to say we can help.
No, and like certain little things like these programs that go in and try, there's that master list floating around the dark web that it's, we hear about all these compromised, 3 billion password and email combinations from Yahoo.
Oh yeah.
Or, like all these are combined into a master list. And like, it always shocks me that like there isn't something in these companies' systems that says, hey, this one computer has tried 13 million passwords in the past 20 minutes. Like maybe we should shut that down. And,
right.
And they don't,
Yeah, there's attempts to do that. The challenge with once you get connected to the internet, there is so much data coming at you. It's hard to decipher what's legitimate and what's not, especially if you're a popular company, or if you've got a website that's highly active, or if your cloud services are highly utilized by 100,000 employees. It's hard to really narrow that down. But you're right. There are things that really that can shine a light. As soon as something's erratic, you got to shut it down quickly.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's my, this is a question that we ask of, most of our security people, is that how do you balance, maybe just at CipherCloud, how do you balance the, because security is the antithesis in a lot of cases to usability.
Absolutely.
You could probably get like a DNA tester, or a thumbnail, retina scanner, RealSense, Intel camera, and have every one of your employees log in and give like 4 forms of ID and a finger, but they're not going to do it. It's not going to be easy to use, and they're going to make up easy passwords. They're going to be lazy with it. They're going to put it on sticky notes on their monitor. How do you balance security and ease of use?
That's a great question, and it is a balance. It always has been. You're right. Security is an inhibitor to productivity. There's no doubt. So there's a couple of things that I think are really important when you're implementing security. Is as you kind of put it, how do you make that experience both secure and transparent to the end user? Because the last thing you want, and I can go back 10 plus years, I was an early adopter of encryption software, and sending an encrypted email took multiple steps. I'm talking copying an email to a clipboard, encrypting it, copying it back, putting a signature verification, tagging a file, and sending it. Nobody wants that experience, right? But my data was protected, but I was, the paranoid security guy. But fast forward to today, everyone wants instant gratification. They want instant responses. The internet is supposed to be always available. It's now a utility kind of thing. So how do you marry this higher sense of security and make that experience transparent? That's where a lot of the challenges and quite frankly, a lot of the innovations start to shine. And that's something that we've felt very strongly about is, again, I'll get back to that idea of protecting the data. So if I can protect the data, no matter where I store it, it's got a sense of protection that only I can see it, but it has to be transparent. I can't have my users say, well, I'm going to go and copy it over here. I'm going to encrypt it. I'm going to put it back in the document and ship it off. No, that experience has to be completely transparent. And that's what we've strived for, and we've thankfully been able to achieve is that extra level of protect the data, make it so that only the user can see it, and make that experience transparent for them. It's not an easy thing to do, but we're happy to be able to do it.
Right, not easy. And then another part of it is that some companies come on the show and they're like, "Hey, we have this platform. You can transfer files, you can share work projects, you can do X, Y, Z." And it's like, that's great. How do you work with existing technologies? And they're like, "No, just stay in our platform and you're good to go." And the world doesn't operate on just one platform. I see some here that you have are things like the Microsoft Azure Cloud, the Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, some of the big players. You can't just be secure in your own little fortress that you built. You got to be able to connect with how other people do business. So, does what you do at CipherCloud work with, these services?
Absolutely. Yeah. The one thing that we were focused on when we built the solution was we know customers are using hundreds or thousands of different varieties of clouds. You could probably name off, 10 to 15 in a few seconds of file sharing clouds, and then you can go into the business application cloud. So in fact, we right now categorize over 14,000 different clouds for customers, and we give them a ranking of highly secure to less secure and dangerous. So when you think about 14,000 clouds, how do you make that work? Well, we kind of took the mode that said we will provide this level of protection no matter which cloud the customer chooses, and we'll give them that flexibility. So whether it's file sharing, whether it's business tools, it doesn't really matter. So we built the platform to be completely separate from the clouds, if you will, but give them that experience that is transparent. So if it is Microsoft or if it is Google or you name the cloud provider, Amazon, it doesn't really matter for us. We'll always take the position that data has to be secured wherever it's going is technically irrelevant to some degree for us. It just has to be secure, and we're the ones that will broker the access and broker the protection when you want to go back and get that data again.
Right. Very, very nice. So, and I'll just ask one more question, then let you go. But
Sure.
Just as a security-minded person, someone who's been in the field for a long time, what kind of has you excited in the security field? Because, we've had companies that are dealing with behavioral analytics that will, kind of determine, is this a person? Is this a program? Is this the right person? Are you excited, like maybe about the blockchain? Are you excited about, VPNs and their continued evolution, AI? I mean, are we getting closer to a future without passwords, or is cybersecurity going to finally, beat hackers? Like, what are you excited about?
It's a lot in there. I'll start backwards. Are we going to beat hackers? I would love to say yes. We just know whenever you build a system, someone will find a vulnerability and exploit it. That's just the way things happen. So I'm not sure we're going to beat them, but I think it's a good fight that we're winning more than we're losing, I would hope.
Right.
What am I excited about? I really, part of my background and where I've come in cybersecurity included a lot of machine learning. I hesitate to say AI. I think machine learning is really interesting, where you can start applying more of a predeterministic approach, or let the system figure out based on some training sets what is good versus what is bad. I think that's becoming a better technology over time. In the first instances, it was fairly rudimentary, and you had to tell it what's right, what's wrong. Now you can kind of say, if these things aren't good, if something falls in that general gray area, then let's take a look at it. And I think that's maturing, and that's really exciting. That's kind of what I'm interested in. And obviously, I think protecting data at all costs. And we're just looking at, as you say, there's this the CEO of Facebook is in front of Congress today. Well, that's data. That's a data problem. How do we protect that data? And I think the more we look at data as the problem, the thing that people need to protect, I think the closer we'll be to protecting and stopping hackers.
Yeah, very well said. And just for your own personal food for thought, and for everyone else out there, we're about to head into computer technology news, but we have a story about the whole thing with Cambridge Analytica. About 10 New Zealanders took a survey on Facebook, and that led to 650,000 profiles being harvested by Cambridge Analytica. So 10 people, 650,000 accounts and profiles were then kind of scrounged. So the work that you're doing there with businesses and trying to keep data secure, it's an uphill fight, but I'm glad that you guys are definitely doing it. So last word, if people want to find out more about CipherCloud, where can they go?
Come along to www.ciphercloud.com, and you'll be able to learn a lot about what we can offer.
All right, perfect. And everyone, like I said, we have a link to that in the show notes available on our homepage right there for, I think, about 2 weeks. But yeah, I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for having this great conversation about cybersecurity. And Anthony James, again, everyone, he is the Chief Marketing Officer for CipherCloud. Anthony, thank you for staying over, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ben.
All right, have a great one. Bye-bye.
You too, bye.
All right, so now, like I said, we are going to head into computer and technology news, and that is, of course, brought to you by OWC. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into that because we only have a few minutes left. So here we go. All right. So why don't we go ahead and start off with that? I had it at 0. Whoops. But yeah, let's go ahead and start off with that story. And this coming to us from The Verge about 64,000. So I think I said 640,000. It was actually 64,000. I apologize. I was off by a 0. But at any rate, this is the story here where by Danny Deal, and saying that nearly 64,000 New Zealanders affected by Cambridge Analytica, but only 10 people downloaded the quiz. So you may have heard that that's kind of how that Cambridge Analytica thing happened, was that they were doing these kind of personality quizzes, fill out these 10 questions or whatever it was, and will tell you if you are a caring person or, it was something fluffy. It's not anything that was really, important, but it allowed them to collect data that was important. So now we have this whole thing out of New Zealand. 64,000 people have been compromised. And they said that although about 311,000 Australians were affected by Cambridge Analytica data breach, only 53 of the country's citizens took Facebook's quiz responsible for improperly obtaining and using personal information, as reported by The Guardian. And again, that was Australia, so 310,000 after only 53 people. And then you have New Zealand, where 63,000 were compromised and only 10 people downloaded the quiz. So these are some pretty shocking numbers and show just how interconnected social networking is. Hey, almost like it's a network. I know, who to thunk. But as many as 87 million Facebook users have had their information compromised, including more than 1 million people each in the UK, Philippines, and Indonesia, where Facebook is now displaying a link at the top of the newsfeed, which points people to remove apps that they no longer need, where users can visit a page on the Facebook Help Center, and of course, that will tell you if you or a friend were affected and what information was potentially shared. So, with that being said, they're now looking into suspicious activity of apps. These changes were made back in 2014. That's a part that I really feel like a lot of people, kind of forget, is that Facebook made these changes around 2014. They knew in 2012, 2013 that these practices were going on, where as a developer, you could ask for any information that you wanted. Where if you were a basic Facebook game, you could ask for all of the information related to a user. Even though, hey, it was just a game, you really didn't need any information, but you could collect it, package it, and then sell it. So they put that practice to bed in like 2014. They're putting it back to bed around now because of all the hubbub. But hey, that won't stop Facebook CEO from testifying in front of Congress. That's actually happening today. I know it was happening live at the beginning of the show. There's probably going to be a lot more digesting of that, in the coming days where we really dissect. I think we do have a story, actually, if we want to branch out real quickly to what Facebook was saying. And let's see, I think I actually have that story right here. So yeah, let's actually cover this whole Facebook thing real quick. Not go into too much detail, but try to wrap it up pretty quickly. And yeah, so if you're watching the video portion, that gentleman on the screen, Mark Zuckerberg, he's in the hot seat. And this article here today from MIT Technology Review saying that Mark Zuckerberg says that fixing Facebook's data scandal will significantly impact its profitability. And yeah, so, as we all know, what happened with Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, 87 million people, blah, blah, blah. He is now in DC talking to lawmakers about what happened, what went wrong, and how they can fix it. Well, the news is that Congress has released the prepared testimony that Zuckerberg will deliver to the House committee, and he will cover the social media network's problem with Russian election interference. But the real meat here is about the ongoing data scandal involving Cambridge Analytica, which, we kind of mentioned. Even if a small number of people actually took it, because of the way that Facebook is set up, it compromised 87 million users. So he said that fixing the leaks, as Mark Zuckerberg will go to great lengths to point to all the new policies on Facebook and how they have been changing them since the scandal was exposed about 3 weeks ago. Of course, they said that it includes limited access to data for apps, simpler privacy interfaces for users, and broad investigation into organizations that have access to data suspiciously, among other things. And here's the part where, this article from MIT Review gets interesting, saying that what he doesn't admit is that a lot of damage is irreversible. The data of 87 million users has been in the hands of Cambridge Analytica since 2013, which means that it's had 5 years to study it and build models based on it. And whatever Facebook does now to stop similar things from happening in the future, it can't stop those models from existing in the wild. And yeah, so the prepared testimony is one thing, but as Axios notes, plenty of lawmakers are planning to give Zuckerberg a very hard time this week. So, like I said, we'll see what happens with with this whole thing. Honestly, the biggest thing about this whole Facebook data scandal is that as much data as was compromised by Cambridge Analytica, imagine instead of having 83 million users that are angry that one company has so much influence over how they vote, what they do, how they think. Imagine if one company instead of 83 million had access to about 2 billion. And you could wrap that up into, your kids. You could wrap that up into your grandparents. You could wrap that up into almost every single working adult. Even if you felt, and actually it's even beyond that, because it's not even 2 billion users. But as we're seeing with this whole Cambridge Analytica thing, if a user gives it out, they still build a profile on you. So if you, and again, I haven't heard any reporting on this. Probably is the case, but I need to actually find some hard evidence of it. But my wild accusation is, of course, that even if you are a black dot on Facebook's network, even if you are not on Facebook or ever were in Facebook or anything like that, I can almost guarantee that just the fact that all of your friends and all of your family share that, I went to the movies with Ben, and Ben went fishing with us, and Ben just got Ben a new Lamborghini, let's hope. But Ben, if a person who isn't even on Facebook is mentioned enough or tagged in enough photos or things like this, there's a profile on them as well. So I think it goes even beyond 2 billion, and the number is probably a lot more that Facebook actually has access to, and Facebook is then, of course, selling. Whatever the valuation of the Facebook as a company, the real valuation of the data is invaluable. It is amazing the power that Facebook has over not just the US, but really the world, with 2 billion active monthly users. And then, of course, even beyond that, greater than 2 billion actual profiles of people that they can then, kind of research. So whatever is happening with Cambridge Analytica, the real story is that, well, Facebook isn't just about who's using the data, but Facebook itself and how much data that they actually have and what are they doing with it. So yeah, there's that whole thing. There's another story here. We're not really going to cover it. Just say that Facebook could theoretically owe the Federal Trade Commission $7.1 trillion for the recent data scandal. So that's for losing people's data. The FTC has certain damages that they pin to people who lose data, and essentially fines. If as a service you lose one of your users' data, you pay a fine of $10,000 or something like that. The FTC pins that at about $7.1 trillion. That's not a number that's ever going to be paid, and that's more of a theoretical maximum penalty. But hey, just an interesting number. Again, that number being $7.1 trillion if the maximum penalties were applied by the FTC. So, I don't think any even country, well, I guess the United States could take a $7.1 trillion hit, but yeah, not a lot of companies could do that. Anyways, so we have like a minute left. I love that our guest went long, but it does mean that we cut into our computer and technology news timeline. Why don't we go ahead and wrap it up with this? So this one, again, from the FTC, but in this case, if you've ever bought new electronic equipment, sometimes you get these, these stickers that are over certain parts of the case, and they said that warranty void if removed or damaged. And these stickers, well, if you've ever seen those, don't worry. The Federal Trade Commission says that warranty void if removed stickers are, can't really say that word, are malarkey, and warns that manufacturers that they're breaking the law, where federal law says that you can repair your own things, and manufacturers cannot force you to use their own repair services. So yeah, looking at you, Apple. Right. So, and so as Motherboard has reported before, it is illegal under federal law for electronics manufacturers to put warranty void if removed stickers on their gadgets, because hey, you can only do that for sleeping mattresses. Everyone knows that. You can't remove the tag on a sleeping mattress or else your mattress is void. But they said that it's also illegal for companies to void your warranty if you fix your device yourself or via a third party. So, and the Federal Trade Commission put 6 companies on notice today with a warning letter that their warranty practices violate federal law, and if you buy a car with a warranty, take it to a repair shop to have it fixed, and then return the car to the manufacturer, the car company isn't legally allowed to deny the return because you took your car to another shop. The same is true of any consumer device that costs more than $15, though many manufacturers want you to think otherwise. So, yep, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Music means that we're just about done. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check us out wherever podcasts are heard, where it's just the show in its entirety, rebroadcast right there on the spot. So you can download it to your phone, you can stream it. Don't worry, we have you covered. Also available through YouTube if you weren't able to catch us live here on IRN or anywhere else. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America, and until next time, be sure to, stay safe out there, best security practices, and, hey, we want you to keep your computers, because if you do, that means, hey, you can listen to us, and that's great. So everyone, until next time, have a great day, thank you so much, and be sure to tune in tomorrow. Everyone, bye-bye.